Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our September 22nd council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, Mary.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Here.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 8th. Any additions or corrections?
Make a motion we approve the minutes of regular meeting of September 8th, 2014.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval manifest 2014-17 in the amount of $539,751.15. Lee.
A couple items here. For Mary, fire truck bond payment, principal 15. How many years do we have left on that?
That is paid off in 2021.
2021, okay.
It was a 15-year.
And this is totally separate than the money we got coming for the tanker.
Yes, this was the
The regular.
that was approved by the voters.
Okay. Page 1, I'm sure that's a typo. Peterson Welding, 55-inch TV for conference room.
Peterson Electric.
Eastern Electric.
Okay, did we need one that big?
Yeah, I was looking for a smart TV, and with the wall that it's going on, they didn't have the intermediate. I was really looking for a 50, and I either had to go 47 or 55, so went with 55.
Well, it's a lot, but thanks for keeping it in town. And I got one more little thing here. Where is it? I got a question for Joe, but he's not here. Maybe you can catch it. This concrete restoration hydro, the 69, are they done down there now, or? Because at the last meeting they hadn't started.
I don't know the update on that, Lee. We'll have to get back to you.
Okay. I had one more. Well, okay, second page, halfway down under general fund, professional services, state of Michigan, sex offender registration fees. I mean, is this something that we collect from them and have to pay to the state, or we have to pay fees because we got some sex offenders out there?
They have to pay us to register, $50 per person, and then we have to pay the state $30 of that.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's the
I
payment
thought
to
it
the
was
state.
something like that. But okay, that's all I have.
Dr. Hayes.
No questions.
George.
Yeah, I had some of the same ones that Lee had there on page 1. I got a number of them, by the way. That TV, Ray, the Legion just bought one for half that price. I realize you said it's a smart TV, but I guess, does it have to be that smart?
Well, we do webinars, so it needs to have internet control. Yeah.
Okay, well,
It's not just running programs off the computer. I mean, we're doing webinars for our staff and for different groups.
okay, and then just on the next column down, the city contributions evidently for your manager benefit. There's 4 in a row of $673. Is this monthly dues here or what, Mary?
That's per payday.
Pardon?
That's per payday. You can see the dates on there.
Could you give us, I don't know if the rest of the council would be interested or not, but I'd like to have an itemized deal here on Mr. Anderson's wages or salary and his benefits of everything over the course of the year, what the city all contributes to. Okay, and then I see down 3/4 of the way down, we got $700 in allowance available for reviewing that, on that truck ordinance. I would like to keep tabs on how much that's going to cost the city here, what we're running up. Page 3, right up the top. Could you get a definition here? You got 8 feet of 1/4 inch bar, flat bar. 50 inches of, I would assume, channel iron for $58. It seems like this is way out of proportion. And right down on the bottom, on the same page, Lapham lumber, bathroom, evidently a retention spring. I would imagine it's a door closer for $600. Page 4. There's an error in the DDA. If you read through the minute says that the DDA contributed $400 for landscaping, and there's 500 marked down here. And also, Mary, I'd like to make note that $1,259.30 for the Spring Valley Ranch, that I'm opposed to that payment. Page 8. This $100,000 for purchase power right up on the top this appears to be high. Now, I don't know, considering the water that we've had over the last couple of months, maybe a month ago, maybe it wasn't as high as we have the last month, but I would just maybe a little bit more information on that. And down a 1/4 of the way, 2 gallons of floor paint, rollers and brushes for $114. That's very expensive paint. And the same thing over on page 9, way down about 6 lines up from the bottom, 10 gallons of, I don't know what it is, Sherman and Williams, for $710. And appears to be some plastic, 31 mil. Question that. Page 10. 3/4 of the way down, right up above the $5,000 deal. A 3/4 inch curb stock ball for $387. And just above the $3,000 one is a 14-inch, I'm assuming a blade of some kind. I don't know if that's a diamond blade.
It's a
If it might
concrete diamond blade.
Okay, for $168. Okay, that I don't have no problem with. But on the next page, one line up from the bottom of the water fund there, rental of a concrete saw for $368. Now, if we're renting a saw for $368, I would think that we could buy one for a little bit more money than that. And that is all I have.
Okay, Chris?
All of mine were covered.
All mine were covered as well. With that, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Make a motion, we approve manifest 2014-17 in the amount of $539,751.15.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes, with the exception of $1,200, Mary.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes, manifest, or agenda? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. I'm sorry, Gene, I forgot to ask during the manifest.
Hi, Jean Bradford, 2465 Travis Farm Road. What was the cost of the TV, just for my curiosity?
$900.
Okay. All right, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question. Mr. Ball, were you opposed to the city annexing its property into the city?
Am I?
limits? Were you?
Yes, I was.
Why?
To be truthful with you, Mr. Hayes, we can't afford to take care of the property that we got already. Why we're going outside and buying more is beyond me.
No, I said annexing the city's property into the city.
The piece of property that you're buying?
No, I'm talking about our golf course, Marion Park. All those lands out there have been annexed into the city now, based on the purchase of that property. We couldn't have done it without that purchase.
What have we gained, Dr. Hayes, by annexing the golf course and the fairgrounds? Absolutely nothing.
Yes,
Not
sir.
1 penny of tax dollars came back to the city because you annexed them 2 pieces of property in it.
You
Am
have
I
to
right
think
or
of
ain't
the
I?
long run. You have to think of the long run, and that those areas can now be developed. Those lands, then, the taxes, any development in that area will be paid to the city. So you can't think short run, 2 weeks, 2 years. You have to think of the long run when you deal with the city. And I think that, again, that was an essential step for this council to take. We tried to work with the township as far as 451, and they refused to cooperate. The only thing we could do would be to annex it, and the only way we could do that would be that purchase the land. And I guess I appreciate Dave Anderson's willingness to hang on to that land till the city would purchase it. And again, I think that that was something that the city, in the long run, is going to benefit extremely much from. So again, it may not give us any additional taxes this year or next year, but and that's because no one's developing anything right now. But in the long run, that is going to help the city. And our police department can now legally patrol that area. That's part of the city. So again, I can understand why you're objecting to it and raising this every time. That's your opinion, but again, I want the people out there to understand that this, I think, was a very good thing. And your continued objection to it every meeting doesn't make any sense.
Can I elaborate on that again, Mr. Mayor? I appreciate your comments, Doc, and that's your own personal opinion. That's not mine, that's your own. How would you like to be, I mean, how many years, I'm sure you've been on the council for many, many years. Botchick's Farm up there, we got a stretch of road that's a quarter of a mile, maybe a quarter of a mile long or less. Them people have been up there for how many years wanting to get blacktop to keep the dust problem down?
Well, I agree.
Am I right?
I
Am I
agree
right?
100%, but that has nothing to do with this
Yes,
issue.
it does. Yes, it does. Now, in your packet,
In
if
fact,
you read it.
in fact,
if-
I've
let me
encouraged that
speak-
we
Let me
add
speak my
that-
piece first here,
Well, that
sir.
has nothing to do with it, but I've been
Yes, it
encouraging the
does
city
have something to do with
to
it.
blacktop that. Back when it was $25,000, I thought we should have done it. So don't throw
Are
that
you
out.
done now? Can I continue?
Go ahead.
I'd appreciate you wait till I'm done speaking. I didn't interrupt you. In Mr. Anderson's comments later on in here, there's a proposal where evidently there's a couple of lots that people have been looking to buy out there. Now, these people up here, I'll revert back to Botchick's up there, been waiting for how many years to get some blacktopping done? And Mr. Anderson now is putting together some ideas of pushing in a road and stuff out there, so a possibility of selling them lots. If, I don't know how the council can justify putting money out there on something that isn't done paying with yet, and denying people up there blacktop under roads. Now, if the council feels that they can wait, we don't have to hurry up and do that. You got, what, 3 or 4 houses sitting on that quarter lot, but they don't count. But yet, we got enough money to sink out here to a proposal to put in a road. Gentlemen, if you can answer that one, go ahead.
Well, again, I'll respond to that by saying that I've been pushing to have that road blacktop back when it was $25,000 and we didn't have the money.
Exactly.
And Mr. Anderson has promised us a road plan in which hopefully that will be addressed. And I don't think that anyone's proposing that road going into those lots so we can sell it and get our money back would be blacktopped. It'd be just bulldozing a road in as far as I can understand.
What's the use to do it if you don't do it to the county specs? Or the road specs? Or anybody else's specs? What, are you gonna push a 2-rut road in there and say,
Well, I guess
okay,
we
now
get
we've
our-
got your road, now we can sell lots? Does this make sense?
It does to me.
I know it does.
Well, everybody has an opinion on it. We all have our own. I was the only one that voted against it when they sold it, but it is what it is now. But again, you have a very good point there, George, as to maybe with the 25 grand, whatever it was, what it cost out there, we could have pushed the road in for somebody else or blacktopped it. But like I said, I voted against the purchase of it.
And I'll also say that we were lucky that that land was still available. And if we didn't have that land, then we could not have annexed all our properties into the city. And that's not something that you can wait 25 years to do because we either had to do it or not do it. And I think, again, in the long run, that's going to benefit the city greatly. It puts our boundaries out there. We've got a lot of land that can be developed. There are some that have roads on it, and if we're not going to put in another 18 holes on the golf course, which was the original plan, then we should start thinking of selling acreage out there and increasing our tax base and bring monies into the city.
Well, and the road for the Spring Valley lots, they're not accessible right now. There has to be a road in there to be able to sell them, to be able to recoup the money that we've spent to buy the property. It has to have a road.
I realize that, Jeremy, but why are we out there venturing on something for 1 or 2 parties that might want to build a house? Okay, if you look around the city, how many other pieces of property are for sale? You got a lot of property, sure, it might be outside the city limits. You've got lots up here on Springview, not Springview, up on top of the hill that the city developed. Them lots ain't also. There's property all over that is available to buy, and we're out venturing on something that makes, because 1 or 2 parties wants to build? I don't know. I just don't know. Doc, there isn't anybody in this room that's gonna live long enough to see that property back out there, get our money back from it. We gotta worry about what we're doing today, not worrying about what our grandchildren are gonna do.
Okay. Under appointments and presentations, we have 2 items this evening. The first one is appointment, Norway Area Fire Department Assistant Fire Chief. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you tonight is an appointment of Mr. Mark Thaler for Assistant Fire Chief. Pat Siegel, who is the current Assistant Fire Chief, has resigned. So before you to approve Mr. Thaler as Assistant Fire Chief.
I'll make a recommendation to City Council confirm the appointment of Mr. Mark Thaler as Assistant Fire Chief for the Norway Area Fire Department.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yeah.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Approval, MML Workers' Compensation Fund Board of Trustees. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is housekeeping. Every year, the city appoints or sends in its ballot for Michigan Municipal League Board of Trustees for the Workers' Compensation Fund. The MML Compensation Fund has a nominating committee, and this year there's 3 seats up, 3 incumbents, and the nominating committee has requested our consideration for the 3 incumbents.
Okay, looking for a motion.
Do we have to mention our names in the motion?
You don't have to.
Okay, then I'll make the motion that the 3 candidates proposed by the MML's nominating committee be endorsed by the City of Norway Council.
Second. Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Okay, under communications this evening, we have 11 items to go over. First one is ordinance 412, an ordinance to regulate the orderly operation of trucks and vehicles of excess weight and size on public streets within the city of Norway. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular ordinance was drafted at the request of some council members, at least starting a couple of years ago. We spent the time to go through, again, at the staff level, trying to come up with ordinance that could be manageable, enforceable, and something that we could work with. We've had a couple readings through committee meeting of the whole. Last meeting we had our public hearing. At that public hearing, we increased the weight of the ordinance for truck to 26,000. So I think at this point there were no other comments. So it's ready for some action by council.
Before we pass this ordinance, Jeremy, I'd like to make a comment. I mean, I think everybody on the council knows that I'm strictly against this thing. And for a reason. We should be, for a community, be doing things that make people welcome into this community. I don't know if anybody noticed or watched the Marquette News last week, where Marquette puts on these bicycle, I mean, they got over the road and mountain biking, they got everything. They had a short TV outfit of downtown. They got bicycles riding on the sidewalks. They got bicycles going all over town with them. You come to Norway, we got ordinances against bikes on Main Street, on the sidewalks. We got the same thing here. You know, rather than putting together a community that welcome people, we put together a community that make people jump through hoops in order to get in here and do anything and welcome instead. I just can't understand it.
When we had talked about this, we were going to specifically exempt local deliveries. I don't see anything in there specifically about that. I see delivery vehicles, but nothing about, in this ordinance, I see nothing about exempting local deliveries from it. Grant?
Section 1, accept vehicles carrying or designated to carry passengers, delivery vehicles, recreational vehicles, all government owned or leased vehicles.
Right, but I mean, I realize it says delivery vehicles, but what's the definition of a delivery vehicle? When we had talked about it, what we had talked to when the people were here last time was that we were going to have it in there that it exempted local deliveries. So I think it should be.
No, we had discussed even a cement truck. If somebody's building a foundation, there's no reason why they can't go down the street.
Right.
And that stuff
But they
like
gotta
that
get
was
a
all
permit
exempt.
first.
No, but we had made it so that it wasn't, if you were delivering into town, the way I understood it from what we talked about last time, you were not going to need a permit if you were delivering to somebody in town. Regardless of what it was. If you had a log truck delivering firewood, they could drive right to them, drop it off, and leave.
Well, this is what my point is, Jeremy. There's so many open ends on this thing. I don't see any use whatsoever why we're passing it.
Because we need to keep,
Anything
we need
you
to keep
wanna do,
trucks
all
in
you
certain
have to do is
areas.
go do it.
We're putting a
And
lot of
who's
money,
gonna stop 'em?
we're putting a lot of money into our streets. We need to keep trucks in areas and roads that are built to handle it.
I agree with you, Jeremy, but you lead by example. Everything that the city's got, the garbage truck, number one, is the heaviest piece of equipment, and they're running up and down alleys constantly, and the alleys are certainly not built for garbage trucks. And you've got the same thing on any other street. The city trucks are the biggest violators of what we got here. This is my point. We're putting together and trying to enforce something that has no sense whatsoever for the city.
This has a lot of sense for the city to keep
I
trucks in
don't see
areas where we
not
want
one ounce of
and where they need to be and keep them out of areas they shouldn't be.
Look at, you got 28 streets here that are allowed for doing, for no reason whatsoever. So, I mean, what are you restricting?
Keeping them off the smaller side streets, the local streets.
But-
These are all
but
major
you
streets where they
allowed-
need to
You
run.
allowed your city trucks to go on there.
Because
what are you gaining?
they're there on their job. If somebody's going from point A to point B because of the job, they're allowed to.
So if somebody comes through town, Lee, and they get lost, you can give them a ticket for being lost in the city of Norway?
You
Because,
can warn
oh,
them.
geez, I don't know where I'm going.
You can give them, warn them and say, hey, you know, this is our rule. Oh, sorry, I'm not saying you have to give them a ticket on the spot, but what you gotta stop is, again, I keep going back to Saginaw Street. Those trucks turning on Saginaw Street off Kimberly Road. No reason for it whatsoever when the highway is 1 block away.
But Saginaw,
The narrowest street in town.
you know, Saginaw Street is the only street in Norway and Railroad Avenue where you've got some industry. And now you're putting restrictions on it.
Stevenson has the industry.
Stevenson is industry,
Yeah,
not
Saginaw is
Saginaw.
the problem.
Stevenson's the first one, Saginaw's the second one.
Yeah,
There's no industry on that street.
I meant Stevenson.
Saginaw, Stevenson has the industry. Saginaw has
And they
not.
can run on-
Saginaw's the one that goes to Holy Spirit School.
And they can run on Stevenson.
I see your point, George, but I feel we have to have this ordinance.
Would, Grant, for my question, would delivery vehicles cover that? So is it a loose enough definition where a cement truck, a log truck, if they were dropping off a Loft Homes lumber truck?
It's an issue of interpretation. And I mean, that's one of the issues with even this type of ordinance is as George has pointed out, there are times where it's going to be the gray area where Mr. Menegini references as well, is having the officers be able to make a judgment call where you're not citing. We want to make Norway open for business and welcome people in here, but at the same time, you guys have a public interest in making sure the roads don't get torn up, and the officers use some common sense. I think that's where, you know, delivery, we could identify and define each word in the whole ordinance, but then we're going to be, it's going to get wordy. I think delivery vehicles are folks making deliveries, as you folks mentioned last time when we had a young man come here and chat and ask questions, and you guys clarified, hey, if you're making a delivery to and from a point, we want to be able to welcome and make sure people can do that. So I think it's sufficient.
If you're comfortable with it, then I'm comfortable with it.
I mean, you could add or vehicles making a delivery vehicles and/or vehicles making a delivery. You know, I mean, just adding worded.
It says the same thing though.
Yeah, okay.
And, you know, if you feel uncomfortable with it, or the council feels uncomfortable, we could certainly clarify delivery vehicles, you know, as Ray indicated, vehicles and/or delivery vehicles and/or vehicles making deliveries.
I'm okay with it.
Do you need a motion now? We done?
We're ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion that ordinance 412 be approved and that staff be directed to make publication and notice as charter mandates.
Second. Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
No.
Okay, next we have ordinance 413, an ordinance to amend ordinance 386 to regulate and control the operation of off-road vehicles within the city limits of the city of Norway. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular ordinance was a request made at a couple of meetings ago To basically eliminate Fourth Avenue, the restriction on Fourth Avenue and Section Street regarding the ORV, the current ORV restriction, to eliminate that and allow ORVs on those two streets. Those areas that were restricted were around by the school. We did contact the school, and they saw no issue with removing them. They have their own, you know, if a student brings an ORV to school, they'll address that. You know, if they're able to now, by able to go over the road, they would handle that at the school, and they're more than comfortable handling that at the school. I also, a couple things I did was in the previous ordinance, it had a map, and I eliminated the map because the maps tend to get lost. It's harder for the public to find a map to being attached to an ordinance, so I removed the map and I just outlined the streets that were restricted. And we also had a request from the police department that under section 5, street crossings, they just wanted to eliminate that last sentence while crossing a public street. So it's pretty straightforward, so we brought it right to council for consideration.
I could be wrong on this, Ray, but as I remember it, it was mentioned, actually it was Mrs. Johnson, Mrs. Skog, that had brought that up, and she was asking why, when school is not in session, like summer months, why can't they use Fourth and Section?
Correct.
And I thought that's where we were gonna go, it's just like, no ORVs while school is in session.
Right. And
Now
we're-
it's
And-
anytime.
And talking with the police department, the recommendation was just eliminate it, because it becomes confusing, you know, to individuals, and there's a time when school starts that, you know, they might end up giving warnings rather than tickets. People will say, well, I didn't know that. The signs are up, no ORVs, then we'd have to have a little more complicated sign. Also, right now, the people that are going through that section are actually speeding through it because they're trying to get past. And it's just, the reason why it's just from the officer standpoint, it'd be cleaner just to lift it. There doesn't seem to be in fact, it's more of a danger to send ORVs across the highway to go all the way around, because there's no other way to get from the east side to the west side of Section Street without going down Fourth or going across the highway and then coming back. So you're making them go across the highway twice. So we spent some time talking with the school, and they felt that, you know, they really didn't have an issue with us eliminating that restriction.
And then again, Officer Schaefer, you said this is the route to go. Okay.
That's the recommendation he wanted, because that's where we started. Let's just do it during the summer. And then he said, well, it's easier if you just allow it, and we'll, you know, let the school deal with their issue, let us deal with ours.
Well, I could see that this ordinance surprisingly has very little complications. I don't think the police have reported anything, so I'll make a motion that we pass ordinance 413.
Support.
Any
Ray,
comment?
isn't Walnut signed up there on your, Walnut Street, isn't there a sign on, for no RVs too?
No, Walnut should be
It's
allowed.
right where it goes to Fourth.
It's right when you make the corner.
Oh, I thought it was back further. Okay.
Any other comment? Is there support?
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yeah.
Mr. Oja?
No. Next, approval, Department of Public Works radiant heater replacement. This one was on last time, and we asked to get bids, including if we had to replace the heat shielding, and that's what we have tonight. The Beatles is still the low quote at $2,500. Rick's Mechanical is $2,540, and Jacobson is $5,750.
Did I miss something, but we asked to get quotes on if we had replaced it, and I'm not seeing that. Or that is included in the new infrastructure, 25?
That is,
Oh,
it
okay,
was
okay.
2, and he said it'll be $500 to replace it, so.
Okay.
On the, whatchamacallit says on the bottom, the quotes from Beadla be approved for the price not to exceed $2,500. On the next page, it says we recommend the contract to Beadla's for a cost not to exceed $2,000.
That was left over from the previous, that was just not corrected, because the previous recommendation last meeting, Beadle had 2,000, but he didn't include the heat shielding, so we sent it back out. So that's a mistake on the recommendation on that second sheet. It's 2,500.
So we're automatically gonna put the new shields on, is that what?
No, we're gonna
That's if
go
they
and
need
check
it. Okay.
to see. We don't think that, they don't think that they need to be replaced, but if they do, that's how much they would cost.
And that was what council had asked for last time,
Yeah.
was what the price was if. That's what it'd be not to exceed. And if they didn't need to, then they would be at the 2,000.
I'll make a motion that we contract with Beatles for a cost not to exceed $2,500.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yeah.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Approval, extension of listing agreement for sale of city-owned property. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had approved Stevens Real Estate to handle our listing of the Springview subdivision this past year, and their contract is now up, so we need to renew the contract for those properties. I've given you a list of the lots that are still available and the pricing, and this pricing is still current pricing. So,
Was it a year or two ago, we had talked about going out and getting bids on realtors and looking into
We
that?
did. Stevens was the awarded, was the,
I don't remember did we ever go through that as a council, or is that just?
no, you gave me the responsibility to go out and
Okay.
solicit quotes, and we only had 2. I contacted everybody, we got 2 in, and so.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion. Is there a motion one way or the other?
Make a motion, we approve the extension of the listing agreement with the sale of city properties with Stevenson Realty.
I'll support. Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by myself. Roll call.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Approval, major street project, micro surface section street change order number 1. Mr. Anderson.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was brought up at the last meeting when we had manifest that there was a additional amount on the Farner bill, $3,080. That was something that came up when Farmer came site, and right just before they started work, it was pointed out that we did not include, well, the question originally was, did we include the half avenues, like our original Section Street job? And after discussing with Farner, it was not included within the quote, and so we asked them how much it would be to include that. Of course, they were, right before they started the job, it was kind of a decision we had to make. So they did bring enough material to do 2 out of the 4 half avenues. So we told them to go ahead and do that. It's at the same unit pricing as everything else they bid. So that is the extra amount that you see. So my intent was to bring that to council at the next council meeting, and with things that came on, it had slipped my mind, and so we're bringing it for you tonight.
So if this is voted down, it doesn't mean anything. If it's voted up, it doesn't mean anything. So basically, this is a worthless exercise. Is that what you're saying?
Not a worthless exercise. I think that council should
It's under 5,000.
move on it, but it is under 5.
I think because it was brought up publicly, I felt like I needed to put that out there. It was my mistake. I should have brought it to the next council meeting. We did have to make a choice or a decision, and Farner did say, they would go as far as they could with what material they brought with them. They usually come to a job with extra material in case there's problems or issues. So, and that, like I said, they were able to do 2 out of the 4 avenues.
If we weren't able to do all 4, I don't think we should have done them. We should have had them all in from the beginning if they needed to be done. If they weren't in from the beginning, they didn't need to be done. So the extra cost wasn't something that was needed. Any? Yes. There wasn't engineering on this. This was the micro seal on section, putting the thin coat over the top of section. Yes. Is there a motion?
Well, I'm not gonna make the motion, I'll just make a comment here. Again, oversight, whatever you wanna call it, I just wish I had been notified before. I probably would've gone along with it, I guess we'll have to mark it up as a glitch in the system. It did need it, I mean, there was no reason, just too bad we didn't have enough to finish the other 2 avenues.
Lee, I don't know, but I think the other 2 avenues are going to be tore up. Am I right this year, Mr. Anderson?
They can be through the RD project.
That's why I assume they didn't do it.
Oh,
No,
well,
the reason they didn't do them is because
I realize
They
that.
said they ran out,
But
according
the
to...
second,
yeah.
on the flip side of it,
Yeah, they'll be tore up.
if
with
they're
that.
going to be tore
Oh,
up, what is he used to do?
Right.
That was, I just assumed that was the process here.
So we need a motion?
Need a motion of some kind.
Okay, I'll make a motion that an amendment of $3,080 be approved for Farner, Fafner asphalt to bring the total section street micro seal project to 41,105.
Support?
Motion made by Lee, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
No.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
No.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Approval, Department of Public Works salt truck top grade. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an item that came from a request from our mechanic. He wants to replace the grating on top of the salt rig, and he did get a price from Peterson's Welding. We did ask him to get some additional pricing. He did go to Monroe to look for the material pricing, and it's basically material is roughly the same, and Monroe, the material would have to be sent here, and we'd have Peterson's install it. So we're requesting that Peterson's Welding be approved for a price of $4,450 to replace this top grate on the salt truck.
I saw that this was not a budgeted item. Is this something that just broke and they're just now noticing it, or how come they didn't see it in the winter during salt season?
I can't tell you the specifics on that, Jeremy. They just came with the request. I think the other grading is pretty rotten. I wish it would have been in the budget, but, they're coming for that request. I think he's going through his equipment now for the winter.
Okay.
And we don't know how long this one lasted.
The old one?
Yeah, the old one, I mean.
I don't know
Did it come
specifically,
with
but
the-
I'm pretty sure that it was a pretty long time. This is a slightly different design.
I read the specs on
Yeah,
it where they're
it's-
gonna, should be less wear and tear on it.
Yeah, it should be better for the operation.
New and improved,
New
supposedly.
and improved.
Well, you know how I feel about funding that's not in the budget. We need it, we need it.
I'll make a motion that Peterson's Welding be approved to provide the sander salter truck top gates for a price not to exceed $4,450.
I'll support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
No?
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Approval, sale of city firewood. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a topic that we've gone kind of back and forth with over a number of months here. I was approached this past week by Joe Pickert, showed me an email. You can see that in your packet. There's somebody that's interested in 21 cords at $70 a cord. They'll come and actually pick it up at the yard. He's asking for council approval. We're looking at the estimate is that we have roughly 61 cords of wood there. So we'd like to move forward with allowing this person to come on and take 21 cord.
Was this technically ever put out for bids? I know Joe was looking around
He could not
to
find
see if he
anybody.
could sell it for lumber. And
Yeah,
originally, they were talking, oh boy, we're gonna get $250, $300 for a cord on this stuff.
Yeah, no, they didn't. They took a look at it and they didn't ever get back to us.
Punky.
So they weren't interested. So I think we're looking at firewood.
Yeah, basically, that's all it's good for, because almost every one of them trees was just rotten inside, you know, punky wood.
If they're gonna be coming onto the property to collect it, do we have some kind of liability waiver for them to sign?
There's two in there, isn't there?
With Grant on that waiver.
Can I make a comment on this thing, Jeremy? I'll tell you what's gonna happen here, gentlemen. You got 61 cords, you said, Ray, approximately over there?
That's the estimate.
You got about 2/3 of it is huge pieces of 8-foot stuff. It's gonna happen here, and I have no qualms on Mr. Carsola. You've got a pile, possibly of 20 cords in a pile, maybe. What's gonna happen is he's gonna come in there and take that 20 cords out of there, which is the smaller stuff, and you're gonna end up with about 40 cords of huge chunks that you ain't gonna get rid of.
Talking with Joe, that was what he wanted was the pile of small stuff.
Well, absolutely. But now what are you gonna do with the rest of it? The mills aren't gonna take it. Number one is because the chunks are too big. Number two is because they got steel in them. So now you're gonna have 30 or 40 cords of wood over there that you're gonna have to haul away. I mean, I have no qualms, I suppose that one bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. I suppose at least you're gonna get rid of 20 cords, but.
Do
We
you
could have
know
a heck
any
of a
way to get rid that,
bonfire.
George?
Pardon?
We could have a heck of a bonfire.
Do you know have any suggestions or ideas on how we can get rid of that? Or-
Right now I don't, Jeremy, but this should be a lesson, but next time we get into this wood deal business, I hope we learn something from this esposade.
I don't suppose there's a machine out there big enough to chop them up, eh?
Well, no, Lee, because they're too big to handle.
Yeah.
I mean, even a processor, Rob's processors can't even handle them. So I mean, now what you gonna do with it?
Yeah.
Have to get the
I-
old
I have-
two-man saws out there and just,
My point, Jeremy, is Mr. Carsola, and what I said, I have no qualms with him coming in here and taking 20 cords and taking a cream, and you're gonna be stuck with everything there.
How much
You're lucky
is
if you can
firewood worth
give it
these
away.
days?
Because every piece has to be sawed up with a chainsaw and with a wood splitter.
Just plain firewood gotta be going for about 110 a cord, no? But that's stuff that you can handle.
You can say in the average of 100,
100,
give
yeah.
or take.
But that's not
depends,
2-foot diameter
delivery
stuff
and all
either.
that.
One thing-
That's my
one thing-
comment, that's all.
One thing we could consider with what's there is with using this permit to come up with, if somebody wants to go in, let them go in on their own with the liability waivers, and if they're willing to cut it,
Is that,
pay a certain amount per load, and
Grant, is that permissible? I mean, are we asking for trouble? Because every time we bring this up, everybody uses this insurance deal as a scapegoat.
Whenever you're talking chainsaws,
Well,
it's concerning, obviously. You know, having waivers helps and releases helps, and doesn't mean you still can't try to file a lawsuit and pursue it for litigation. You have that paperwork as a defense mechanism, but it's still, if somebody gets hurt, you know, they're probably gonna try to, sometimes in this litigious society, people try to find a way to find a lawsuit sometimes, so, you know, we can do everything we can to try to minimize that, but anybody with a couple bucks and a pen can still file a lawsuit and you still have to deal with it, so there's always concerns, certainly, Mr. Ball, I agree with you. There are always concerns, especially when you're talking about chainsaws.
Well, even if Mr. Cazzola comes in and does it, is our, excuse me, our mechanic have to stand there and watch him do it? That's the impression I got under the write-up.
No, he doesn't have to stand and watch him to do it, but
Or if somebody else
Should
goes
be
in to
some-
help themselves, somebody should be there.
they have to do it. Our recommendation was during working hours. They have to check in, and then they check out,
Oh, okay.
basically.
I misunderstood it. I thought somebody had to be there actually
No, just
watching them.
Just the way that, way we have it set up is that you would get the permit from the city hall. You would take that paperwork, you know, they pay here, we want to handle the money here. And then they would take that paperwork and hand it to Rick. And it would say on there what kind of vehicle they have. And then, I think that basically,
Fill up.
when they're ready, then they can go, yeah.
So you're allowing them to cut then on city property, right? Is that,
Yeah, we asked our insurance about that, and they said they would definitely cover the city, you know, if something happened. The one question was governmental immunity. Normally, we have the coverage of governmental immunity, but if we're selling it per load, then we're acting like a business, and we would potentially lose that governmental immunity. I think in talking with Grant that it might be viewed differently if you were selling a permit and not a load of wood. You know, the permit costs X, but I'm not sure if you ever got that far, Grant, with.
We were drafting up the permit process, looked at it, we were looking at was the state of Michigan will often sell permits to allow folks to go on to state property to cut wood. It has similar language, similar situation, and that's what we were looking at as an analysis was the state of Michigan to have a similar permit and similar language that resolves some of the liability issues and disclaimers and reference points. So the next question we were looking into was just a double check to make sure that it's the permit working with the insurance company protects us sufficiently.
So with that, I think we're using that model.
Okay, so for the issue now at hand with this 21 cords, what's the council's pleasure?
If you would like to table this, just give us some direction as to what information, like if you would ask us, maybe one suggestion is George's comment about the 40 cord, what are you going to do with it? It may be worth tabling it for one meeting and allowing us to research that a little more. I know one thing that I've heard, and I'll speak for the few residents that have their name on the list in the city hall, that they're very interested that residents get that wood. And if, I'm not sure if they have the ability to come on site to cut. So that's from a political standpoint, that's something to bear in mind, but we do have to take care of, we got to get that wood out of there. So we do have one individual on the list that paid last year, and we paid, and we had ran out of our loads last year, so we feel like since he paid, we should deliver that one load to him. So that's another factor that we need to account for.
I'd certainly think that residents had a first chance at it.
But what we're trying to do, Doc, is get away from the delivery part of it. So if you want to say, we're not going to allow him just to come in and grab 20 cord, he can come in like anybody else, that's a decision you guys can make. You know, number of options. I mean, if you would like to table and have further discussion, we can do that.
Mr. Anderson, can I make a suggestion for next year?
Sure.
I highly recommend that we let it on the boulevard right where the tree is cut down. If the people want it in the front of their house, if they want it, fine, let them have it. If they don't want it, let them give it away to somebody else that needs it. This wood has cost us, I asked Joe for a price, how much is in it already, I never did get it, but this is the sourest thing I've ever seen in my life, turned out to be.
Yeah, if we would've left it on the boulevard though, we would've had complaints after complaints.
No, let them, if they want it, if they don't want it, Chris, let them give it away to somebody else that wants it.
Then I gotta deal with getting the wood off the boulevard?
They take the small stuff.
Somebody will always come and get it. If it's free, somebody will come and get it.
Just so you know, when Asplin started cutting the trees down, we had a number of folks from Iron Mountain coming down and grabbing the trees. And we actually went out there and we had to,
You're right.
you know what I'm saying? I mean, they were
You're
ready
right.
for the small stuff. And
Hey, you're right, because one of the biggest deals that I heard from Joe and the guys over the street department, we had to get it out, we had to hurry up and pick it up and get it back to the side because everybody was stealing it.
Yeah.
That was the best thing that ever happened in the city, if they would've stole it all.
They weren't stealing the big stuff though, unfortunately.
Well, I know.
I agree. We have to do some thought on it. Well, next year, we won't have 135 trees to hit, so I think it was just the sheer volume of it. But anyway, those are the options.
I don't have any
Mr.
suggestions
Anderson
really.
can handle this any way he wants.
No, Ray, I would
Support for
hate,
that.
and Jeremy, I would hate to table this, because now is the ideal time to get rid of this firewood, and I'm sure Mr. Carswell is anxious to get his hands on it, if he's gonna get it. So, I mean, I'm looking at both sides of the story here.
Okay, there was a motion made to let Mr. Anderson handle it any way he wants. Is there support for that? Is there support?
Ray, are you happy with that? First of all, I mean, why put
Well,
something in your hands if you're not happy with it and you can't do it?
No, I can take care of it. One of the things is there's going to be there's going to be probably a couple options that I'm going to go through. I am going to try and listen to, some of the folks. I don't know how many, Mary, do you know how many are on the list?
I think 14, that's the number,
Yeah.
14 or 17.
And I want to take a look at that, and quite frankly, if the 14 that are on the list, are they willing to come to the city shop and cut? And are they going to, if 20 cord of the wood that's actually handled is gone, and all that's left is the big stuff, so I want to take a look at that. He's willing to come in and take it at $70 a cord. That's good for me. But the thing is that we may take some and push it aside. It may not get 20 cord, but I don't think that'll be an issue, so.
You might want to check into Ray and
Check it.
with Champion, to see what kind of wood they'll handle, or even Aspen up in Sokola. I mean,
Right,
then it would pay to have somebody come and get it and haul it up there.
right.
That's another option that,
It's gonna cost us money to get rid of the big stuff from the sounds of it, so if they're even willing to come and just take it.
no, but Lee, if the mills will take it.
Oh, the mills
my
itself,
point,
oh,
If the mills will
yeah.
take it, then it's worthwhile having somebody coming in, picking it up. They haul it for $10 a cord? I'm sure you get more than $10 a cord that you're gonna get at the mills for it.
Well, they may use it for hog fuel, I don't know.
So I mean, my point is, see if the mills go. I am surmising that, number one, like I said, metal in the trees, and number two is the size. That I know Champion up here, they got lots of rejects because of size, so I mean, what exact size, I don't know.
What happens to their rejects then? What do they do with them, do you know?
They throw them off on the side.
Just don't.
I don't know what they do with them. I mean, they can't put them in their debarker and shred them.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe they have some outlet for them someplace.
I don't know.
Maybe you could contact them, Ray, and find out what they do with the oversized stuff.
We can do it.
I'll second Doug's motion.
Okay, there's a motion made to let Mr. Anderson handle it any way he wants. Supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini,
No.
Dr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein,
Yes.
Mr. Ball,
Yep.
Mr. Oja.
No. Okay,
May I ask, what would your suggestion be, Jeremy?
well, we should
And we-
actually, we should come up with the plan that we want to do and approve the plan, not just an open-ended, well, whatever. Either table it and bring it back with suggestions, or approve this. That's what, more specific.
It don't sound like you want to approve this.
Well, like you said, George, if all the good firewood's taken, we're gonna have a harder time.
Exactly.
Next on the agenda, approval license agreement, Holy Spirit School sign. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sort of follow-up of something that we had a year or so ago, where Holy Spirit put up a new sign. We wanted to have a sign out closer to the highway, and we approved, allow them to put their main sign on city property just west of our combined flow, overflow. And now they were looking for a small directional sign that they'd like to put out near their entrance, actual entrance off of Saginaw. And it's going through the same process, so I've given you a copy of the size and type of sign and location. So council needs to approve to allow it on, to be on city property.
Besides the, just the location on city property, does it meet the rest of the
Yeah.
zoning requirements
yeah,
for signs?
It's plenty within the regulations. It's far enough off. It's a small sign, so.
Make a motion, we approve license agreement with Holy Spirit School for their sign.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein,
Yes.
Mr. Ball,
Yep.
Mr. Oja,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Approval, professional service, professional surveying services, 14th Avenue, Lakeside Drive. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple meetings ago, council approved moving forward with engineering effort for the storm issue we have on 14th Avenue and Lakeside Drive. As part of that original package, there were some additional surveying, and council wanted us to pull that out and took at all the options. We did go to another surveyor who we normally use for, especially for property issues. He declined to give us a price based on the scope of work, complexity, whatever his workload. I think his workload was pretty deep, but Coleman did break down their original quote into 3 different property swap options. We're recommending to move forward with option 1 and 2. Number 1 provides an easement down for the storm piping, which is going to traverse down the hill from 14th Avenue down to Lakeside. The second is that when you get to the bottom of the hill, there's a number of property issues in that area is a bit wonky. Is that a proper term when it comes to the legal right-of-way versus property layout? So we were trying to clean that up a little bit. Jim Moore from Coleman Engineering's here tonight. He can answer specific questions on the surveying itself. And so
Does everybody have a map?
everybody should have a map.
I'm Jim Moore with Coleman Engineering, the surveyor up at Coleman. You know, Ray stopped up to see me. As you can see, he asked me just to break it down, make it a little bit more clear what we're trying to do. He wants to go with options 1 and 2. Option 3 is very difficult. That's Mr. Zanone's property there. If you look at that piece, you can see he owns a lot of the roadway. It'd be a little bit complicated to get that figured out, to take the roadway from him. As you can see, if you go with option 1, which is the easement through the 2 parcels, that's pretty straightforward. I put a price of $1,500 on that. That would mean we'd survey the James Linda's property plus the Catlin property, and then we'll prepare 2 easements, one through the first parcel and then one through the 5th parcel. And then prepare a map for that so we can get an easement through there. Now, the other one, as you can see, we tried to crosshatch that a little bit for you. You know, these are right off the GIS legal descriptions, but, you know, we're going to have to take some property from, is it Catalan? Is that how you say that?
Catlin, yes.
Catalan, you know, we're going to have to take some from them in the roadway and then give them some back of that triangle. The Fasadi property would gain some property, as you can see, to straighten out that little corner, but then we're going to take some property from the Hilton and Rudolph Hilton and property. We'll have to negotiate that, but what I have to do is survey all 3 of those parcels, and then create 1, 2, 3, 4 more parcels for takes and for, to take and then give them property. So I have to negotiate that, so a little bit of work. So I put a price on that of $4,500 to do those 1, 2, 3, prepare the 4 parcels, but also survey the 3 parcels before I prepare the other 4. So just, we try to just clear it up a little bit, what we were trying to do out there. I said I didn't put no hatching on Mr. Zanone's property, which is option 3, because I'm not even sure how we would handle that. As you can see, the roadway goes right through his current legal description. But I guess if Mr. Anderson is recommending options 1 and 2, what we do is write the easement through the 2 parcels and prepare the maps, and then we'd prepare the 4 give and take parcels for the Catalan and Fasadi property.
Harv?
Yep.
Number 1, you said?
Yep.
Okay. And number 5?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have to get involved with 2, 3, and 4?
I guess that's,
Outside of the fact that, what are you trying to do? You're gonna make that curve rounded, or what?
yeah, we'd take, you guys would take ownership of the roadway then. You know, we would take that from their property, but then we'd give Catlin some property. But then again, I guess, George, it's up to you guys what you want to take and, you know, what you want to deal with.
What, this number 6 down here, what is that for?
Well, that's a parcel that we would have to,
The
you know,
city,
we're gonna.
the city
we're gonna
owns that right
give-
now. The city owns that piece right now.
So we would give that to the Catlins in place of taking that little curve from them.
Exactly. So why are we getting involved in 3?
Which I guess just to clear up that legal description, I guess. You've already got that corner there. I guess that's
3 and 4.
would be up to the council what they want to do.
I don't see why we're getting involved with 3 and 4.
Really, 4 I had nothing planned for, George, on that one. We were just gonna.
Isn't that where the storm drain is gonna go? I was under the impression it would come down through 1, and where it hits the corner, you'd have your culvert there, go underneath the road to the next one on the northwest corner of Fasadi, and then down alongside Lakeside Drive, all the way down.
Is, Ray, I mean, what's the intent here? Going underground with this, or just,
I think we're trying to connect into an existing storm.
Yeah.
That then goes down to the lake.
and that is where at? Do you have any idea, Harv?
I thought it was gonna go right down. I thought it was gonna stay inside the right of way when I had talked to Scott. That's why we didn't fool with number 4 at all. And all we're really doing with number 3 is just clearing up that piece of property. But again, I can take out whatever the council would like me to take out or add. That's kind of why we kind of hatched it up to decide what you guys want to do.
One of the realities in dealing with the road is that I assume that's been there 15-plus years. So, you know, the property owner is not going to be able to block the road because they said the property lines go over it. You know, it's been like that for a long time. Again, I'm going to throw this at Grant, but, you know, it's been used for public use for a long time. That's why when requests came in to look at the area going up the hill where John owns, I mean, it's been used that way for a long time. I mean, I'm not sure, other than having, it'd be nice to have it cleaned up, not sure why the city needs to spend a lot of money to clean it up. I mean,
Well, that's
it's
my
gonna be
point,
used,
Rick.
you know?
I
So-
can see 1, 5, and, I mean, even as far as 6, I mean, then you're all dealing with just within the city and Mrs. Varda, I mean, this has been Susie Varda Catlin, been a thorn in her side for years and years. I mean,
We
I
just
would
have an
definitely
option.
think she'd be happy to get this thing cleaned up and get it working.
Yeah, with her, we had an option to just to do a switch, a swap,
Right.
which is pretty even swap, so that seemed like a pretty straightforward thing to do, because there's no reason for us to own that kind of a strange triangular piece into our property where we actually need to have that curve for the road, you know, so it just made it reasonable just to, while we're doing this, come up with the legals and just do a property swap, and she was very happy with that.
Well, I don't understand why we're spending a lot of money to do this. Why can't we just have Jim write up an agreement and have all the parties sign it without spending a lot of money on surveying, putting stakes in the ground, and it won't make any difference
Jim
anyway?
can't write a legal agreement. He can't write the
Legal
legal description for where we need that. These guys have to go out and actually find out where it needs to be located. You know, I mean, that's,
Well, and I think, George, the 2 and 3 are just to clean up the road, clean up where the road is. That was why they're included. Giving the property back to 3 and taking a little bit from 2.
I would like to make a motion, Jeremy, of property 1, 5, just them 2 pieces with the city being involved on the right-of-ways.
6, 2, that's the corner we were gonna
Right,
trade.
1,
1, 5, and
that would
6.
be part of.
6 is the city property.
That's the city, so. you
Right.
would
That's a
be
trade-off.
Well, for the swap, would be
Right.
swapping.
next
it.
question.
Involved
What's
with
that?
the swap or
Answer
whatever
his
you have to do.
What's the question?
well, I just think, you know, answer that question about Jim or myself just sitting down and writing a legal in this situation. I mean,
Yeah, I think if you want to convey the property, you should have a meets and bounds description on it. You know, I mean,
I'm not diminishing our abilities to
Right.
sit down and figure out angles and language, it's just that.
because even the maps are, these are just GIS maps, Doc. I'm not sure exactly how accurate they really are until we go out there and start finding the pins.
Well, it sounds like all the people are in agreement with it. Why do you have to sit down and put pins in the ground and survey every little detail when you're gonna say that in the end, you're just gonna change property? To me, it seems like it's a waste of money.
That's just for the legal protection of the legal, you need the
Right.
legal description to do the
Well,
deeds.
Is it in the
I think,
budget?
Doc, what you run into here, it isn't
I'm not against
for
that,
what
I'm
our
not against it,
generation
it just, to
now,
me, it doesn't
the
make
next
any
person
sense
down
to
the
spend
line
a lot of money on
that
nothing.
takes over.
Because we don't put
We
the,
get nothing out of it except some paperwork.
but the problem is, Doc, they're really not gonna know what they're getting, what they're receiving, what they're not, unless we market for them.
Well, if Susie Catlin signs the agreement,
Unless you just,
that's the one we really have to deal with.
unless you just go with number 1, and we'll write the easement through the 2 parcels and be done with it.
Well, again,
1
we
and
have a
5?
motion, for,
5.
Yeah, I mean, just go with option number 1, write the legal description for those two parcels and be done with it.
we have a
But then you don't
motion
have the
for,
parcel swap.
2 parcels.
number 1.
Does that include the property
Yes,
swap?
Jeremy.
No, no.
That's what he
As soon as
just
somebody's-
still
that?
wanting to.
Okay, there was a motion to do option 1 and then do the swap with just a little bit out of 5, or, yeah, a little bit of 5 and the piece of 6. So it's not the full
some-
swap amount.
Doesn't 1 have to be included in it?
Well, yeah, yeah,
I don't know how much extra how much difference that is.
Yeah, so say we did it in half, so say it would be, 2,200 to do the 2 parcels instead of the 4.
so 37
Yeah.
total? Is it that amount work for you, George?
37?
3,700, that's the 1,500 for 1, and then 2,200 to do the little piece of 5 and 6, to swap that.
We're not gonna worry about 3 then?
No, that would not be for 3.
And so we wouldn't touch the Hilton property or the Fasadi property.
We'll just work with.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
And you're okay with the dollar figure?
Yes, I am, Jeremy.
Okay, so the
Could you-
motion, Mayor, the motion is to do option 1 and to do part of option 2, including the pieces that connect to 5 and 6 for a price not to exceed $3,700.
All right, so then I'll survey those 2 parcels, and they'll have a take, and then I'll have an add-on.
Okay, now, just a silly question, Jim.
Yeah.
What if you can't find the pins?
I will find them, or if not, we don't find them, we'll set them,
Oh, okay.
yeah. That
Because
will-
I know in the past 20 years even, the pins were supposed to be set, and
Right,
They
that's why
weren't.
it's not that simple either, that's
Yeah.
why, you say, why is the price so much, but how do you know what we're gonna find out there? And And sometimes finding bad stuff, Lee, is worse than having nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, is there support for?
I'll
the
support.
motion made by George, supported by Lee?
Is this in the budget?
Roll call.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
No.
Okay, next on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. MEDC, low moderate income survey. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tried to give you, you've got quite a bit of information within this particular report from information that I received over the last few weeks concerning what they call an LMI, or a low moderate income list, that we have with the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. If you remember back in 2000, 2001, the city performed, or we had an income survey performed in order to get on this list, and we're right at we're just below the 50% level. We were in 2001, and again we're slightly below, a couple percentage points below this year. And what that does is that under their programs, their grant programs, if you're not on this list, there is a job creation and a private investment calculation that they use in order to factor any kind of grant monies that you get on the projects. The city has, over the last 10 years, brought in through these programs in excess of $5 million over, you think of all of the road work that we did on this side of town. You think of the rental rehab program that we did downtown, the facades, number of these MEDC projects. We've been very successful in getting into their program. With the job creation requirement, I don't think we would have scored out and gotten into these projects. Again, when the list came out, they're using a factor from 2007. It's not the actual government census. It's a company called Census Track. They came through and did their own study in 2007 for income study, and I think when 2010 rolled around, it's the responsibility of the government, federal government, to provide a census every 10 years. It doesn't tell them exactly how they're supposed to do it. So I believe what they did was they performed the population and racial study, but they did not perform an income study. And so what they went and they used the numbers out of this 2007 census tract. I must have looked at it and said, well, these are good for us, so we'll use them. It is our recommendation, strong recommendation, that we perform another income study survey in Norway to try and get back on this list. The standards for being allowed to do the income study have gone up quite a bit. I spent a couple weeks, or at least a week, working with the MEDC to be allowed to get what they call a notice of intent, to be allowed to move forward. And I also went to the DDA last week and asked them to contribute, fund, or help with the costs of doing the study. I did receive a quote from QPAD, and QPAD handled our last income study. The worst case scenario is what I gave you for $7,080. The DDA has pledged $5,000 for the study. So there would be the difference, the $2,080. But if you notice in their email that is the worst case scenario, if it could be as low as $2,200 using volunteers. City's response for recruiting those volunteers. If we had temps, it would be like $3,200. And then, of course, if we just said QPAD, you handle it, that was a total $7,000. So there's a chance that it could be under $5,000, depending on, once we start working with QPAD, if we were able to secure some volunteers to help with some of the groundwork. I do remember back in, I think it was in '02 when we did that study, that it was very difficult, first rounding up the volunteers, and secondly, the volunteers contacting individuals, residents, it wasn't as, it was challenging. We did make it, we got through the study, but I can't guarantee you, how many people would be willing to help with this effort on the volunteer side, so. Anyway, I'm gonna open up for questions right now, but hopefully council move to approve the $2,000 to allow move forward with this survey.
2,800.
Yeah, 2,080.
Well, I feel this should be done, no question about it. Might be able to qualify. Ray, on this, that'd be the third page down, I guess. Time period, what does a person have to do to be qualified to do this? It says volunteers, I mean.
Yes. Well, you're gonna have to, we're going to have to contract with QPAD. MEDC has a pretty strict requirement as to who can do the survey, and then once the survey is done, it has to be, again, they have to qualify it through, they have just a small number of qualified, highly qualified audits that they have. And one, I think, is somebody at Northern University. But what we would end up doing is probably soliciting a group of volunteers and have them work with QPAD. QPAD would basically tell them, this is what we need you to do. So maybe groundwork, maybe some door-to-door, there might be some phone calls, whatever. I think they're gonna need help anyway because we know our community and they're gonna need some help with that. I know in the office here, we're gonna have to give them help because they basically will start with a list, and that's through our billing. That's the most extensive list we have, so.
Well, because I see your QPAD cost is $60 an hour,
Yeah,
where the temp cost is 12, and the volunteer is nothing if you gotta be qualified to do it, whatever stipulation that is what you have to do.
I don't think they gave, Lee, I don't think they gave us a real strong, I mean, this has been going pretty fast to get to this point, but they didn't give me a qualification requirement. I think that's something that we want to work out. Obviously, we want to keep the number down as low as possible. If we can find people willing to help, maybe the $12 an hour will be a way to get those people. So,
Mr. Anderson, I can recall going through this a number of years ago. And Lee, let me tell you, it turns out to be not but a waste of time. You think you got all these people lined up and you don't. You can't get nobody really in charge to take over and do it.
You mean the volunteers?
Exactly.
Oh,
And if you're gonna do it, just hand it over to somebody else and let it get done, because you're putting this out depending on people who volunteer, they don't show. You're absolutely right, Ray. I mean, we had nothing but chaos.
it was
And
just-
you continue to fall behind because people make promises they don't hold. So if the city, if the council feels that they're gonna do this, I highly recommend that we.
well, I'm just curious, I had to ask.
Yep.
Don't even waste our time to thinking about any other way.
And I agree with that, George, especially for the amount of money that we've brought in with these grants. For us to pay another $2,080 on top of the DDAs is nothing.
My concern would, where are we gonna get the 2,000?
Where you got the last 3,000.
Do you have any ideas on that, Ray, where the funding was gonna come from?
We would do general appropriation, we'd have to pull back on something. I don't know, I mean, it's $2,000, I'm sure we can
Sale of the firewood?
sale of the firewood. It's worthwhile, so whatever fund we can.
Yeah,
figure out,
we have to, we
money
have
set
to
up-
do this, we have to do this, there's no question about that.
We have some set aside
Ray, do
money
you
that
feel
we could.
confident that we can get over or under that mark? I know we did last time.
We did last time, we were a little higher last time, but I just think that based on what I've seen out of that 2007 census tracker number, I don't know how much detail they put into that to come up with that number.
Can I ask you a question, Ray? If you
Sure.
go through all this problem, do we have any, are we gonna have a problem convincing whoever that your numbers were no good, we have to use ours? Or did
Well, if we go through the survey and it checks out and it gets certified, then they have to use our numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's
We're
certified.
gonna go through all this problem or
Yeah.
trouble, and then say, well, we don't believe yours.
And that might be another good reason you use QPAC to make sure it gets
Yeah, it gets
certified.
certified.
I agree, Jerry.
Okay. Any other comments, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve up to $7,080 for QPAT to do the survey.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menagini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
And last thing on our agenda for this evening, approval resolution 2014-29, Oak Crest Golf Course 2015 membership rates. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a time of year where we approve our membership rates for the next year. We have a recommendation to keep the rates the same, except for there was a request to increase the student rate. I know that this has been something that has been discussed in the past about trying to keep those student rates lower. However, the feeling is that they're kind of artificially low at this point, that the students, that we wouldn't drop in the students for raising them the $20 to the $30 that we're requesting. And the other factor is that they don't match when you take a golfing adult and a golfing student, and you take separate memberships, where you take the student rate and then the single 35 and over rate. In the old rate, it was cheaper for them to do the two separate rather than to get a two-person rate. And so what they wanted to do was they recommended that we at least make that to be equivalent to the two-person. So you didn't have, have them do two separate memberships. So outside of that, though, basically the rates are the same as last year. So we're recommending resolution 2014-29 be approved.
How are they doing budget-wise, Ray?
Mary, did you get those final figures today
No,
from the auditor?
no, we'll get him tomorrow. We're meeting with him tomorrow.
We were slightly above budget in revenue. I mean, not revenue over expenditure, slightly above, but we had to add in depreciation. And usually when the auditor comes in, it's been my history that I like to see, or my experience, I like to see our revenue or our revenue over expenditure high enough that after he does his auditing, that we still are higher. And when it's pretty close, usually we come out where we've lost a little bit of money. So I haven't seen that final figure yet. It did look like we probably could lose money based on depreciation.
I don't think it was gonna be as big as it's been in the past. I think it was a better year financially, but we're meeting with him tomorrow to get the final numbers.
One of the, and this is what I pointed out again to the Golf Commission, is when we look at the expenditures over an extended period of time, such as say a 5 or 6 year window, and you look at the revenues over the same time period, the biggest reality is that our expenditures have gone down. And our expenditures, we have done a pretty solid job without losing the integrity of the course to try and keep those expenses down. The problem is that, and this is, I think, as much a industry problem as anything else, but our memberships have dropped. And so one of the emphasis that we want to put, or the emphasis we want to put this year, this coming winter, is try and bring the membership numbers up. What can we do to encourage old members to come back? If they've dropped, what can we do to get you back? Encourage new members to come in. Course was in really good shape this year. We struggled last year. lost a few people, I think, because of that, but this year, the course is in pretty good shape. So, you know, we think that we might be able to, or we're hoping to try and bring some additional numbers in. That's why I think the key is we got to try and bring that membership number up. We are in, I hate to use this golfing pun, but we're on par with everybody else with the golf courses of our type, and that's why we don't recommend raising the rates. It's still, I think, a pretty good deal out there, so it's a matter of whether or not you want to buy membership and play golf.
Would it make sense to wait until the next meeting when all the financial figures are in to vote on this?
Well, no,
Something that's urgent that has to be done today.
I'm not going to make a different recommendation though, Doc, because I'm not basing it, we have to, every time we've gone through in the last 10 years and raised the rates, we've lost more memberships because of that than we've gained in the amount that we raised. So, you know, to me, this is a business decision as far as if we raise the rate because of a financial, then my experience has been that we've lost more members than, and we've actually lost revenue the following year. So we've stayed pretty sound on keeping the rate consistent based on the market, based on other courses around us. We have to try and gain new members. We have to bring in, raise the numbers up. I mean, Mary, you and I have gone through this a number of times, looking back and forth. I mean, would you agree?
I'd agree, 100%. I think Ryan's got some ideas too, maybe this year to go get out and make a push for past members. You know, how, you know, is there something we can do incentive-wise to get new members? So I think he's got some ideas to try and get that membership number up, but you're right, if we raise the rate, you'll lose more than you'll gain. Historically, that's what's happened.
And our auditor is done. He's going to be, is he scheduled at the next meeting or the meeting after?
I think it was the next meeting. He's gonna let us know for sure tomorrow.
I mean, you can, there's nothing magical about us, other than that, you know, they try to put out a newsletter, but I'm not sure if they're putting it out by the end of this month. They like to have the rates.
Things are going to stay the same, but I just thought if you had all the information in.
Yeah, and our recommendation is going to stay the same. I mean, because just what Mary said too, it's a business decision or recommendation. So.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution 2014-29.
Support.
Motion made by George, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Okay, that's our business this evening. Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on any subject? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
Jean Bradford, 2465 Travis Farm Road. I just have a couple questions about tonight's meeting.
Okay.
The real estate agreement, how long is that for?
1 year.
1 year. How much property has Stevens Realty sold for the city of Norway?
We didn't sell anything last year.
Okay. Any interested? Like DNR was going to purchase that property out by Pierce Gorge. Should that ever come about?
Well, I'm meeting with the DNR tomorrow to actually talk about the Michigan side. On the Wisconsin side, I'm still waiting to hear back from them. So.
Okay, so that still is a possibility.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And then when you're talking about the golf course, probably a year or so ago, I think the general fund had loaned the golf course like $126,000. Did that ever get paid back?
No, that right now the golf course still has that debt to the general fund. The clubhouse is paid off. I believe they have one more payment now for the roof. And then we'll be looking at addressing getting that money paid back to the general fund from the golf course once the payments for that clubhouse and the roof are done.
And was I right? Was it $126,000?
I
think it was a little more, Joan.
I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I agree. I think it was closer to 150.
I want to say that sounds about right, yeah. But that will be paid back. once they get their clubhouse paid off.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the audience wish to address the council? Okay, Chris?
I noticed an article in the Daily News and then also in our packet about Governor Schneider and some of the support for the bad winter to different counties and cities, municipalities. And I noticed that Norway was not listed on, I don't think anybody in Dickinson County was listed on that list. And kind of, I know we had put together some numbers and supposedly submitted that to the state troopers we had to submit that to. So is there any reason why we did not get on that list? Or are we looking to get on that list and get money out of that?
We cannot get on that list because Dickinson County did not apply for, did not have an emergency declaration made. There are some, I've been back and forth with the county on that issue, with the emergency manager, and there's some, I have to find out exactly again why they didn't declare. There was some confusion, I think, over how those declarations were going out, and my issue really is not with, not the political side, not with our legislators, but the MEDC came out with, they were given from the governor monies to go out because we did not qualify for any FEMA monies, okay? And there was the thought was that we probably wouldn't meet the threshold to get FEMA monies. But what the governor did is he said, okay, here, MEDC, here's a pot of money. Go and help these folks out. And then for however reason they came up with this, you had to have declared by a certain date. And we never declared. So we were not put on that list. There were other communities that also were not on that list, other counties. Schoolcraft, Manistee was in the same boat. Alger actually was not, but Munising City, for whatever reason, made a declaration, so then the MEDC allowed them to go on the list. So I've got some issues with the process, which I'm trying to work through. Doesn't mean we're gonna get on the list for this year. What I'm hoping is, and some of the language I've been hearing is that maybe it'll get righted for this coming up year. And that's what I'm hoping to do.
As retroactive back to,
Not, well, it may be, I don't know, but I mean,
I would find
I
that
think that there's some concerns that, that we're this upset because I haven't made any, I haven't left any cards on the table, let's put it that way. I've been pretty upset about it and spreading that out.
it was the county's responsibility to make the declaration, or did we have to
Yeah,
make
but
it
there's
in
some,
Logan County?
see, I've been back and forth with Pete, and there's something to do with his conversations with the state police. The state police were involved. They were working with the governor's office in how to do these emergency declarations. And so I still don't know all the details. I really hate to, throw anybody
And how
under the
much
bus
money-
for that.
And how much money were we
Well,
asking for?
but see, we had roughly $350,000, but not all of it was qualifying. And, the main parts of our cost are gonna be in the US 2 and US 8 repairs. So, I mean, we saw that it was roughly, $50,000 to do the repair. So, we're probably talking just south of 100, of what probably would get approved. We have more costs than that, but based on how they're approving those costs, I'm probably looking at that.
So at this point, it's safe to say we are not gonna get funding?
I said that before. I mean, we're just gonna have to take care of it ourselves right now. But, I mean, I've had a few calls again today, trying back and forth with folks downstate on, they're knowing that I'm pretty upset. So, I mean, I got some calls back today, which is about the first time since we started this go around.
Okay. Another question I have is on our bandwidth for internet. I have noticed and I have heard several complaints about slow speeds happening at night on weekends when it's obviously overloaded. I know that there have been discussions with Packerland to resolve this issue. And as far as I know, they have actually been working with us to give us more bandwidth than what we're currently paid for, but we do not have a contract or an updated contract in place to proceed any further. And I've been kind of harping on this for about it's been at least a year, that had these conversations with Packerland so that we wouldn't get to this point that we're at right now. I'd like to see this get resolved as soon as possible. Get in touch with Packerland, figure it out, get a contract, and get the issue fixed. That's all I have.
With that, Chris, I've noticed, for me especially Sunday night, it's pretty much every Sunday night, it's bad from 4 to 8, 4 to 9. I've noticed it myself as well. I had talked to Jim last week about it. He was gonna look into it, and I haven't followed up with him as to, with the bandwidth use and what was
We're
going on.
maxed out. We're just completely maxed out. And it's not a matter of them giving us more bandwidth. They have to do an upgrade of their hardware.
Right.
I asked about that a year ago. It never got accomplished. And now we're in the situation that we're in. It needs to get fixed.
George?
Yeah, Ray, I agree with you on your comments there on, with the county and the state. Is Iron Mountain, the feelings between Iron Mountain and Kingsford the same as what ours are?
Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to do, George, is work with Iron Mountain and Kingsford and Brighton Township.
Right.
You know, all four of us have costs, hanging costs out there, and we were all excluded. If they would come out and they would say, okay, everybody, you know, put in your grant, you know, here's this freeze grant, put it in, and then we didn't get awarded a grant for whatever reason, I have a much easier time dealing with that than just being told, you can't even put a number in. I can't even put an application in. That's where I'm starting from.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
At least it could do is give us a hand to fix the highways,
Yeah, opportunity.
nothing else. I got a number of items here that I'm sorry I missed the last meeting 2 weeks ago that I wrote down. The sidewalk on 6th Avenue between Main and what's the first block?
Iron?
Iron. Main and Iron. Casanova's old house, Ray.
Yeah.
There's shrubs and trees that consume half the sidewalk there. The branches from the trees are hanging down on the sidewalk, and the shrubs are growing into the sidewalk. I had mentioned this once before, earlier this summer.
Did they cut it back when you did that? Because I know they cut it back one time, but.
I don't think they've been touched.
Okay.
The boulevards and the highways that I had been harping on all summer, I guess that's not going to be handled, is it, this year? I'd like that to be put on the list for the first thing of next summer. There's a settlement in a manhole on Main Street on 8th Avenue. It's right in the lane of traffic. It's settled, I would say, a good 6 to 8 inches already. Every car goes around it already, so it's a good size, well, it's a manhole that's settling. I'd like to see that fixed before winter, because otherwise you're
That's on Main Street?
right on Main Street, Main and 8th. Is there any light, Ray, on fixing the highway and the boulevards on 8th and US 2? I mean, is that any possibility of getting done this year or not? The intersection. And the boulevard there, right at the station, is that our responsibility or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I see that hasn't been touched.
You're asking whether we're gonna be able to fix,
I'm just wondering, is repairing the highways, is that a possibility that that's gonna get done this year, Or no, is that taken right off the scope already?
Probably taken off the scope. I mean, we looked at trying to contract that out, and the contractors were so busy, we were getting ridiculous numbers, so. I mean, we
Okay.
have to pour, yeah, it's a pretty
I
big
think
job.
when we bid that out, we had like 80,000, we had one bid only, and it was for 80 grand to fix the two.
Is that
Okay.
something we maybe look at reevaluating in a month if we have a mild fall and contractors are slowed down?
I'm not sure if the highway department will want us to do it in a month. You know, bid plants are gonna close. So I guess that's just a function of how long they'll stay open and whether the highway department will let us actually do a pour.
And I had a update on the dam, but I see Lee had mentioned that before too, where we're sitting on. Is that completed for this year or not?
I don't know, I have to get back to you on that.
And patching on the streets, Ray, I see we still got one guy kind of putting on miles around town. I don't know if we're doing much work anymore. Is there a possibility of him possibly doing something else? Getting involved in maybe cutting grass or something?
George, I haven't been keeping track of what he's doing, so I'll have to ask that question.
Yeah.
When I talked to Joe, Joe was using him for that as well, for doing the grass cuttings,
Okay.
and he was moving him around as he needed him.
I wasn't aware of that, Jeremy. That's fine. Also, did we sign off of Railroad Avenue already? After the inspection, did that just signed off, so we're responsible for anything that happens hereafter or no?
Well, they had to come in and do some washouts, so they were still working, from what I
Well,
understand.
after this last rainstorm,
Yeah, they had to come back. They know, Jim Peterson said he was coming back.
okay. That was my question, because there's, right at the end of Section Street, and just in the middle of the block, there's a huge, I mean, it's washed out right down to the R&R. So there's a huge washout there. And I wonder, maybe, I don't know if you can mention this, Ray, if there'd be a possibility, because it's washing right off the road, down into the ditch area, if they could probably put riffraff in there to eliminate that, because if we get another rainstorm, we're gonna end up with the same thing. And
That's
then
right across from Section? It's on the north side?
North side road,
Right across from Section?
almost
All right.
just down a little bit, just down a little.
Okay.
I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah. That's all I have.
Dr. Hayes.
Well, I'd just like to add something on that. I wondered, would it be worthwhile putting a resolution asking the state to repair the highways? I don't think the city should be responsible for the $50,000 to $80,000 to repair US 2 and US 8.
Can I give you what the response is gonna be? It's our water line that broke, so we have to fix it. I mean, we had the same thing up when the water line broke up by Thirsty Well. That's, you know, that's our line that broke, so we're damaging their highway. That's it.
Tell them to move their highway off our line.
That's their land.
But I think we ought to be covered on it. As far as the state is there any way of putting a resolution or asking for money? Or
I
is
can
that
do
gonna-
it, but they'll tell you to get your damn water lines out of our highway. That's what they'll tell you. You know, I mean, that's pretty much what the feeling is, so, I'll put a resolution together, but I
And
think
they
it's.
don't want us to fix it, if we
it'll
were to
kinda
fix
look
it
little-
till next spring anyway, it sounds like.
No, we can't. I can put a resolution, Doc, but when we send it to them, it'll probably look kind of goofy. I hate to say it, but I mean, that's, because
Well, I
that's.
was asking, would it do any good to?
No, it won't do any good. But I'll do whatever you guys want. I mean, it's,
It'd be a feel-good resolution.
it would be a feel-good resolution, and, you know, they'll basically take it and go, because, you know, our water lines are trespassing over there, and that's not trespassing, we have an agreement, but it's like the gas company, you know, if the gas company puts the gas line under the road, and then the gas line bursts, you know, they're gonna say, well, city, it's your road, you fix it. It's your gas line, you know, so, you know, they're responsible because they're in the gas line. It's like the franchise agreements we have. You know, they're required to fix those lines or fix the road back. So,
Next question, have we made any progress as far as getting our own utilities from the city? Like, for instance, operating the pump down at the golf course? Or is there any-
absolutely nothing, and that is, right now, I pushed and pushed and pushed on it. Right now, we do not have the legislation that allows us to do that, period. We can't even get our own people right now because it's on a common line with customers in the township. So that, what we thought was easy, is now gone. So we don't have legislation that supports us to get any of that. Now, that is something I'm trying to work on, so that as we go in and do the rewrite, that we can actually negotiate and try and get that into our possession. So, and I think with what's coming down the road with the potential cost increases, the energy costs around us, I think that it's going to become more and more attractive, you know, for residents to come on board. Let's put it that way.
One other question, we'll let Lee.
Well, Chris and George pretty much covered everything I had.
Okay, Doc, back to you then for your one more.
I forgot what it was, so.
Okay, I got a couple things. One, I got a note from Mary today. She just wanted me to pass on that, and most people will not see this till after it's done, but on Tuesday, the 23rd, and Wednesday, the 24th, TV 6 and Channel 12 may be off the air or intermittently off the air between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. They're doing more work on their system, on their end. It's nothing we can control. We were just informed of it this afternoon. So, passing that on. And so with the TV, I wanted to remind everybody, on the 24th is when your channels, well, there'll be some channels changing and moving around. The information was in your bills. The information's also available at City Hall. So just reminding everybody, that's the day channels will be moving around. That's all I have.
One other item. Ray, any word on the trees for the boulevard?
You mean for planting this winter?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we, again, because of the schedule, it looks like our best option is to go in, do a spring planting for next year. I'm gonna try and get some additional monies through the DNR so that we can add to what we have.
So there's nothing this fall?
No, I don't think this fall we're gonna be able to do that. We only have actually 12 people on the list right now, so we don't even have a truck, yeah. So we'd like to market it some more this winter and try and come back in the spring.
Okay. Did you remember your question?
Yes. Is there any progress on our road plan?
Yes, I wrote it up in the memo. I met with Scott Nowak from Coleman. He's helping me with some of the pricing issues that we have, or options. We got our Paisley rating, so.
Good. Okay, good.
Hey, Mary, anything? Grant, anything you'd like to add?
Tempting to comment on Chris's comments about his dismay over the county of Dickinson being left out of the disaster declaration after the winter we went through and the costs incurred, but I don't think this is the forum, so I'll just keep my mouth shut and let Mr. Godstein's comments stand. Thanks.
Right. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion made by Chris, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Oja,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Okay, what if there's one?
1713.